I have the ability to learn from manufacturing, from analytics groups, from commodities trading, from sports teams. So because we're supporting so many different businesses, it affords us the ability to basically investigate technology that normally, if I was just supporting the football team, I would. Technologists get excited when they can create and they can assist their stakeholders get their jobs done. And I think that's the point in time where we're at right now, is people are really excited as to what the future holds. But what most people see in AI is, hey, I'm using ChatGPT to help me write an email or update my resume or ask it questions. That's all fine. We're looking at things a little bit differently as we look at our enterprise model, and to say, how does AI help us transform our business? And right now I have probably about 75 potential use cases sitting in brainstorming sessions.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Pundit podcast, the show exclusively for the people shaping the future of sport. Driven by my curiosity working within the industry, I started this show to host conversations with decision makers from the MLB to the ICC, unpacking their strategies and industry shaping ideas. On today's episode, I'm joined by Michael Israel, Chief Information Officer at the Kraft Group, where he oversees a complex digital ecosystem spanning everything from the New England Patriots and Gillette Stadium to global manufacturing plants and commodities firms. Since joining in 2019, Michael has led a sweeping transformation from deploying Wi-Fi 6 and 5G across Gillette Stadium to installing IPTV screens and menu boards to unlock new sponsorship revenue. He is now overseeing a 5-year strategic tech partnership with NWN designed to re-architect their digital backbone, all ahead of hosting 7 FIFA World Cup games in 2026. In this conversation, we dig into how he's planning for the AI era, what it takes to future-proof a stadium like Gillette, and why the guest experience, from concession speed to TikTok-ready connectivity, is becoming a performance metric in its own right. So, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Michael Israel. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, Michael. I really appreciate you taking the time. Maybe just as a starting point, you could give a little bit of a personal background for the listeners.
Good day. Thank you, Andy, for having me. Michael Israel. I'm the Chief Information and Technology Officer for the Kraft Group. Kraft Group is the holding company for all of the Kraft operating companies within the organization. So we have obviously Gillette Stadium, the New England Patriots, New England Revolution. And then outside of stadium operations, we have a variety of manufacturing and processing businesses in paper products. We have Rand Whitney Container Board, which is a cardboard recycling facility. We then have Rand Whitney Group, which has 10 cardboard box manufacturing plants from Pennsylvania through New Hampshire. And then we have International Forest Products, which is a very large commodities trading firm, which moves paper-based products all over the world.
I think one thing that would be particularly interesting to people working in sport is how your role is sort of spread across multiple industries and how you're able to maybe pick and choose lessons or best practices from certain areas of the Kraft Group and bring them into the areas within sports that are maybe more familiar to the listeners.
Sure. So because we have such a diversified group of companies, there are times where a need will pop up in one of the organizations. For example, we were using video anomaly detection, and we put AI tools into our streaming security video to monitor what was happening in the plant. And we were monitoring some safety items. Is someone wearing a safety vest, and creating a action if someone wasn't? We were monitoring our raw materials as they come off of a truck. Should they be placed in a warehouse or should they go on a conveyor belt? And that application will tell the forklift operator what to do and verify that that's being done. Well, in that case, as we started to get our hands around that application, we found a variety of use cases here at the stadium or potentially at the teams with using the same software platforms. So at the stadium, we took that platform. If someone's climbing the fence where they shouldn't be, can I do license plate detection? In the unfortunate incident, if someone carrying a weapon, we want to detect that. And someone leaving a bag behind, and we want to detect that. And then take it to a sports team. Can you, and we haven't done this yet, but we're talking about pieces like if a player's lining up incorrectly on the field, detecting what the formation should be, being able to have that information available for the coaches after practice to say, hey, let's look real time, let AI detect how we were doing and speed up the process so that they're not having to sit there and look through tape. So that's an example of just taking a process or an application that's in use in our manufacturing zone and bringing it over to the stadium and the sports teams.
Yeah, it's a really interesting use case. And it actually reminds me of a conversation I previously had with Josh Helmrich from the NFL, who runs Next Gen Stats, because I think when they first started doing player data tracking, they ended up using Zebra technologies, which I think at the time were used only outside of sports, rather than using any of the solutions that were currently kind of within the sports tech ecosystem.
Yeah, we've come across that as well. And typically anything we're doing with the NFL or Major League Soccer, they control everything on the field. We look at pieces of how can I help the coaches or folks in the stadium mentor players, train players in the practice scenarios, or when they're going through those pieces. That helps them when they get to the field. But it's important to say that everything that happens on the field is controlled by NFL or MLS.
You mentioned NFL and MLS there, so I think maybe just taking a small step back, it might be worth just kind of explaining everything that sits within the sort of sports portfolio. I'm thinking the football team, the soccer team, and maybe also Patriots Place, because I think one trend that I'm reading a lot about at the moment is the opportunity for sort of stadium infrastructure projects that go way beyond just the sort of playing area.
Correct. So I'm responsible for the entire campus, and our campus has Gillette Stadium. It has our office buildings. So the Kraft Group sits proper attached to the stadium itself. We have two practice buildings, one for the Revolution and one being built now for the Patriots. But we also have Patriot Place, which is a shopping district, food, retail shops, movie theaters, bowling alleys, etc. Bass Pro Shops. It's basically a shopping mall on non-game days, and it's an entertainment venue on game days. But my team is responsible for Wi-Fi and connectivity across that entire process. So the entire campus is actually controlled by the IT department. Inside the tenant buildings, they control that, but any public access ways, when it comes to wayfinding, when it comes to Wi-Fi, when it comes to overall connection to our fans and or guests, that's controlled by my team.
And what are the strategic advantages to having that kind of campus set up, in your opinion?
Well, from our side, we're capturing that data. We're capturing what you're doing when you're coming. It's the ability to engage with our guests, not just 10 times a year when their season ticket holders are here for a game day, but hopefully when they're here for a concert, when they're here on a Friday night or Saturday night with their family. They're coming to Gillette Stadium, they're coming to Patriot Place. They are engaging with us on a regular basis.
And in terms of that data collection, how does that manifest itself for the average person that's maybe not thinking about that? Is that them logging onto the Wi-Fi and signing up with an email address, and then you're able to track where and what people are sort of doing while they're across the whole campus? So, like, for example, are you able to identify that you've got some fans that are fans of both the NFL team and the MLS team, and that they're attending for both matches?
Well, we do have means of doing that. We have an extensive Salesforce CRM system with links to both the NFL, MLS, Ticketmaster, and other components. So if you're buying a seat at the stadium, we know who you are, obviously. We know if you're keeping that ticket, if you're reselling that ticket, we can tell from that perspective. We know how often you're coming, but all of that is housed within our CRM system. If you're coming to the campus, if you are a Verizon customer, you automatically onboard onto our Wi-Fi system. You don't have to fill out anything. We don't want people to have to go through that process of electing and opting in and going through that. If you're a Verizon customer, which a large portion are in the New England area, you're automatically on my Wi-Fi when you enter the grounds. It's what you do here that will allow us to start to capture those types of things. So we will know base information of how many people are on Wi-Fi at a certain time, what they're doing, et cetera. But I don't know down to it's Andy, it's his kids. We don't go to that granular level in terms of who's there. We do capture that you came, you scanned your tickets, you came into the stadium. If you use a loyalty program, we can see that. We're looking at other means in the future to capture more information as you start to engage with us, to try to understand what concession purchases you're making, what things are happening, so that we can continue to connect the dots.
In terms of the loyalty program, what does that currently look like?
We'll do incentives like with soccer to say, hey, if you're coming on this night, maybe you're getting a scarf. There'll be family meal deals associated from time to time. And there may be special purchase opportunities. There'll be discount offers over at Patriot Place, or if you're going to see the vendors there, maybe they're sponsoring, hey, go to Dunkin' Donuts, get a free cup of coffee on a non-game day. Or we have a program where if you're parking at the stadium and you stay 2 hours later in certain lots, you'll get awarded to stay late to ease traffic flow. So the marketing department's always coming up with different ways to engage with our guests.
I like that. I haven't heard the concept of staying later in the car park. Usually people are panicking that they're going to have to pay more to stay in the car park.
Well, we do it because, like everything else, it's, you want folks to, one, enjoy themselves. If everyone's leaving at the same time, you're all waiting out of that parking lot. If you know that, hey, I'm going to stay 2 hours later, traffic will die down. It's an easier way to get out of the stadium. Folks will stop in Patriot Place, grab a bite to eat after the game, or they'll go to a pub and watch other games on TV, just trying to ease the congestion of people getting out.
Yeah. No, I like the idea. I think it makes complete sense. But just going back to your point about Verizon, I'm curious of the kind of like way that you weigh up the pros and cons there, because obviously if you got people to fill out a form and give you information on themselves to access the Wi-Fi, which, when you're in a crowded place, you quite often have to join the Wi-Fi if you want to get a signal or share a story from the game onto your Instagram, whatever it is, right? What's the kind of the pros and cons of just saying, if you're a Verizon customer, we're going to let you just immediately connect through to the Wi-Fi, which means you're maybe getting slightly less data, but you're obviously making it a more seamless experience for the customer.
You just hit it. You're making a more seamless experience. Customers have, one, a seamless experience, two, a better experience, that they're getting to take advantage of our Wi-Fi system. They're getting the data. They're on Instagram. They're on doing whatever they're doing. But at the same time, if you're collecting that data, sign up for Wi-Fi, enter your email address. One, in most circumstances, folks are not necessarily providing the accurate email address. Then if you're having them confirm the email address, go through all of that, it adds too much to it. And people are just not going to go through that process. I'll tell you, if I'm going to a Starbucks or to a restaurant and they're asking for that information, I'm making it up as I go along because I don't want the marketing emails. We want guests to come in, join the Wi-Fi, have a good experience. At the same time, it's a utility, and it's a utility that we get less complaints then, because if you're in a stadium with 60,000 people trying to use cellular, it's challenging at times. So we alleviate that load on the cellular network at the same time.
And I guess there's also that element of, your fans are your best marketing asset when they're at a game, right? You want them sharing stories and taking photos of themselves at Patriot Place.
Right. You want them to do that. You don't want them sitting here saying, oh, and fans are very vocal. If they're not having a good experience, whether it's Wi-Fi, whether it's a parking lot, whether it's cellular, they will let you know. So we're doing our best to make sure that they're enjoying themselves and there's no obstacles for them to do that.
Yeah. I remember going to Taylor Swift's gig in the summer, and I think it took maybe like an hour or two before anything would upload.
That's a perfect example. On the second night of Taylor Swift here, we had 52,000 fans in the stadium. On my radio, halfway through, I got a note that said, in my ear, there are 62,000 unique guests on Wi-Fi. And I said, well, how can that be? There's only 52,000 people here. I asked my folks to check the number. They circled back with our security staff. There were 10,000 kids in the parking lot with a TikTok challenge on my Wi-Fi network. I had 62,000 people, and we were still only using about half of the available bandwidth that day.
In terms of how you go about implementing innovation, right? Like, what does that process look like for you within the Kraft Group when you're, I don't know, changing to a new provider? Because I think you've just announced a deal with NWN. I assume you had a previous provider, and so there is probably a cost of change and a process that kind of comes with that. So how do you go about that process?
We go through a process in which we're evaluating vendors in the marketplace. We're also in a unique situation over the next several years. First of all, everything we do here is very standardized. So my networks, whether you're in the stadium and our manufacturing plants, they're all a standard network. They're separated by facilities, but it's the same topology. It's the same configurations throughout. There's tweaking, obviously, when you're dealing with a stadium versus a manufacturing plant. But as we look at what's happening with us over the next 5 years, we have, as an example, a new Patriots training facility being built while we speak. We have FIFA coming in next summer with 7 World Cup matches. Right after that, as I mentioned, everything's standardized, but everything's also on a life cycle. We then have a network consolidation project. We then have our firewalls coming up for review because they're at 5 years. And then on the tail end of that, we're potentially be building a new soccer stadium north of Boston in 2029 or 30. It's still up for review, but there are 5 or 6 very large enterprise network projects that are going to go on and kind of crisscross over one another. So we're looking at the vendors that we currently have, which we've had longstanding and very good relationships with, but looking, saying, I need a partner that can help me with a deep bench, who's agnostic, who can help me pick these new standards for us as we look to the future, and then help us implement. Because my staff is very lean, I want to have the ability to be upgrading the Gillette stadium and then planning to deploy potentially another stadium right behind it. So looking at who in our marketplace can help us get down that journey, work with us to determine what are the best products to use, how do I tune them, how do I make sure they're set to support our environments. And that's how we sat down with NWN. They had been, actually years ago, they were one of the vendors who installed our first version of Wi-Fi here. Kind of did a full circle, came back to them.
And what kind of things are you looking for in a vendor when you're going through that process?
Well, we look first off to build a relationship. It's not based on just what am I buying today, but let's look at what I'm planning for over the next 5 years. Not just what I'm going to buy, but how do I architect it? How are you going to help me implement it? How are you going to help me support it? And then how are you going to help me deal with day two when we have security issues that pop up? We have everything that happens in life these days. Are you at my side through this? Are you at my side helping me deal with the manufacturing partners? Are you at my side dealing with when I have an uptick, issues happen. So you look to build a relationship with someone that is not just for that purchase, but for the duration of that product.
When I look at NWN, it's very prominent on their website that they're AI powered tech, right? So how do you think about AI in respect to technical solutions, and also not necessarily for right now, but looking ahead over this 5-year period that you're going to be partnered together?
So most people today, this AI craze has started over the past 18 months and it's been around. It's another word for machine learning at this point for most of us. But what most people see in AI is, hey, I'm using ChatGPT to help me write an email or update my resume or ask it questions. And that's all fine. We're looking at things a little bit differently as we look at our enterprise model and to say, how does AI help us transform our business? And right now I have probably about 75 potential use cases sitting in brainstorming sessions. And like an entrepreneur, maybe 10 of them will wind up in production. But we're evaluating potential use cases based on what's happening within each business unit. So if I go to my HR department, for example, they came to me and said, hey, can we use an AI tool? We get about 10,000 resumes a year. And I want to take those resumes and start to ask questions of the system. Say, find me someone who applied who has this skill, this skill, this skill. And instead of an HR recruiter having to put them into folders and look through them, can the AI tool sweep through them and bring them right to me? The answer is yes. And so as we go through potential use cases, I'm meeting and my team is meeting with our stakeholders to say, what business challenges do you have? If it's my food and beverage department here at the stadium, we self-operate our stadium. So it's my team that's managing concessions. How many chicken strips should we buy for the next week? And an AI system can look at all the data we already have and say, well, based on templates of the types of events we're having, the number of fans, past history, weather, it can start to make decisions as to, gee, here's how much beer, water, and we look at that and we say, we agree, or gee, I don't know. So it's allowing us to start to help make better business decisions. So again, out of 70 or 100 different potential use cases, we have to evaluate an ROI. We have to evaluate, gee, if we build it, do we build it ourselves? Do we buy it? Do we outsource it? So like any other IT project, we're going through these pieces as we speak, but it's a very exciting time for us. It's a very exciting time to be able to put in end users' hands the ability to not be looking at a report or a dashboard, but being able to basically ask the system a question and predict and help make decisions.
A company I previously worked for used AI to forecast injury risk in soccer players. But what we used to talk about a lot was we're trying to be data informed rather than data driven, because I think a lot of people talk about data driven, which kind of implies that you're just letting the AI steer you completely. Whereas it sounds like the approach you have is, well, let the AI do some of the work, which is then going to help inform the decisions that your people are making.
It is exactly the case. We have the data. Let AI help us sift through that data to say, what should we do? Should we do A or B?
In terms of having that sports and non-sports portfolio of companies within your kind of group, do you think that's an advantage because it gives you more reason to maybe go after a project like that because you can apply it across more verticals if you're doing it in-house?
It's an advantage in that, like most of my peers, for example, within the NFL, most NFL teams, the IT group is only responsible for the team itself. At a football team, maybe they have 200 or 300 employees for that team. I have the ability to learn from manufacturing, from analytics groups, from commodities trading, from sports teams. So because we're supporting so many different businesses, it affords us the ability to basically investigate technology that normally, if I was just supporting the football team, I would. As we said before, being able to cross-pollinate and a solution I may be finding in a manufacturing, gee, I could take that same piece, get proficient at it, and apply it over here, or vice versa at times.
I think the other point with AI that's maybe interesting being a bigger organization is a lot of it comes down to the size of the data lake that you're working with. And perhaps compared to some of your NFL colleagues, you have a bigger data lake to be building with or leveraging.
It is. Also, I'm lucky to have an ownership group behind me that allows us to be entrepreneurial and says, go try that, go try this, go try this. So it allows us not to get stagnant. We're always looking for new ways to improve. We're always looking for new ways to help transform the organization.
When you're looking at essentially like an AI use case, and then you decide that this is something that you maybe want to move forward with, let's use the HR example again. If you're deciding between building it in-house, working with a vendor, or outsourcing it to an agency, like how do you go about that process? And do you kind of look at each opportunity in its own right? Or do you, for example, have like a tendency to say we want to try and keep as much as we can in-house and then we'll only outsource if we absolutely have to?
No, one, we'll look at the cost of each. But if somebody has something already built, why should I start building something from scratch if there's an out-of-box solution that's already there? Because you're going to get the support, you're going to get that piece. We'll evaluate those vendors to say, hey, making sure they're going to be in business tomorrow or the day after. And that's the challenge that you have with all of these new AI vendors coming out, is to make sure that, gee, are they going to be around? If I'm outsourcing the development of something, I want to make sure as it's developed, my staff is brought up to speed so we can support it on day two. I don't want to be held hostage by a vendor who's developed something on my behalf and I don't know what to do with it once they get it back to me. So we'll go through that process as well. And if there are items that we can develop internally on our own, like we just developed an application to do bag scanning. And by bag scanning, you come to a stadium, you need a clear bag and it has to be a certain size. And we have iPads at our front gates now that we're in pilot mode of scanning to make sure that bag is okay and can come into the stadium. And that's something we just decided to build ourselves. But we do that on a case by case basis. We'll look at the project, we look at what's the cost, what's the benefit of each one. But overall, if somebody's got something pre-built, that's going to take precedent over us having to build it ourselves, because I can do multiple things at once then.
The other part there was that you talked about getting your staff up to date with certain software. Obviously, a lot of people are using ChatGPT, like you mentioned earlier, to maybe it's to help with writing an email, or whether it's summarizing a transcript from a call that they were on, right? Like, is there a certain amount of education you have to do around using those tools appropriately?
Yeah, we have a AI acceptable use policy that's been built between my team and our legal and HR team, which dictates to our employees what you should and shouldn't do. We have standardized platforms to say these are the platforms that are our standards that you can work on. These are platforms that we're blocking that you can't work on. You want to work on it at home on your personal side, that's your case, not on our systems though. So we will vet which applications are approved for use. We will block applications that are deemed unsecure or that we don't want you to use. But we're also making sure that from a data governance perspective, that our key data isn't leaving and going up into the models. We want to make sure that our proprietary information is staying here in-house.
When you're looking for new ways to improve, where is it that you look for inspiration?
I will talk to my peers. I'm part of a variety of different groups. I have CIO support groups that I'm part of. I have some consulting groups that I listen to. I listen to my peers in the NFL or peers within the soccer stadiums. But I've been doing this now almost 40 years. So thankfully, I have a variety of relationships, whether in manufacturing partners or in the industry itself with other CIOs, in which we're exchanging ideas on a regular basis.
Do you also learn from these other organizations that are coming in and using the stadium? So like whether that's, Taylor Swift coming and doing a concert, or whether that's like FIFA coming for the 2026 World Cup, is there certain practices that they're sometimes doing, or certain things that they sometimes will demand that therefore kind of change the way you have to operate?
FIFA is an example of one that's an absolute. Yes. You have 7 matches that are essentially the size of 7 Super Bowls coming in here over a 2-month period. And that is definitely eye-opening. It affords us the ability to work directly with their staff. I mean, they're working with 16 other venues at the same time, but we're looking at this and saying, there are things that we're doing that we normally wouldn't do because FIFA is coming in here. Other times with the Taylor Swift, a lot more on the physical security side of what needs to be done to support that type of scenario. When it comes to other matches, like last year, we had the Army Navy game here at the Gillette Stadium. So we had the opportunity to work with the FBI, the Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. It's a big event for us. So because of those things, we have the ability to learn from everyone else, and we have direct relationships with law enforcement, as well as, the artists that are coming in here. Hopefully they learn from us at the same time as well.
For sure. And they can learn from this podcast too. Was there anything else that you were particularly enthusiastic to talk about or excited about kind of moving forwards over the next kind of 6 to 12 months?
I think this is a really exciting time for us. Every time we think the industry is getting stale or getting quiet, something like this pops up. And I think it's really invigorated my team. Everyone's excited as to the types of projects that we're working on, types of things that are in front of us. And then when I talk to my peers, it's the same thing around. It's technologists get excited when they can create and they can assist their stakeholders get their jobs done. And I think that's the point in time where we're at right now, is people are really excited as to what the future holds.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and talk us through some of the areas you're working on.
No problem, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Pundit podcast. I'll include more info about the guest and the topics covered in the show notes. And you can also find my LinkedIn profile if you'd like to connect and let me know what you thought. Visit sportspundit.co to find previous editions of the podcast, access the newsletter, and to sign up for our WhatsApp group and see upcoming social events in cities around the world. See you again soon.